So this is our Wednesday night Bible study. I'm Cassandra Williams at Mount Pleasant Baptist Church of Byron. And one of the things that we know for sure, we were talking about this on Sunday, is that the message was everybody cannot go with you. Everybody cannot go with you. When you get ready to be elevated by God, when he gets ready to do a work in you, a lot of times people want to go. It's amazing to see it on social media where you have a page and your page you haven't posted anything in a while. You may not have done anything in a while. And then all of a sudden you post something and maybe somebody likes it or maybe they're quiet, but it's amazing when you post something and it does really well and a lot of people like it and people make comments and maybe it gets 1,000 views or 500 views. It's amazing the people that you have not heard from that will come up and start saying things on your page. That's because I always say people like to get on a moving train. Or it's easier to push a moving car than a parked car. But just because people come alongside and want to get on that train with you or that plane with you or whatever analogy you want to use, it doesn't mean that they're supposed to go. It does not mean that. It means some people are opportunists. Some people know when God is about to raise you up. That's why I try not to prophesy people's prophecy. I give it to them in private, unless it's something that I'm not saying truly about what God is doing. That I give and learn to give in private, because people will try to attach themselves to you when they know that God is about to raise you up. And it can be confusing because you think that they're supposed to go and they're not. And even people that have been walking with you for a season, they may think that when God is getting ready to prosper you and promote you, they can feel it. Some people are prophets and they don't even know it. Or maybe they're empaths and they just can feel it. But the bottom line is it does not mean that they are supposed to go. Everyone cannot go with you and everyone will not go with you. And so you have to listen to God in this season about who is going with you. You have to be able to hear from God about when to shift and make that change and cut off people, because everybody should not go with you. Truly, there are people that are opportunists. Truly, there are people that have a need. And the reason they're connecting with you is because of a need, not because they want to give something to you, not because they want to bring something to you. And you have to be careful to vet people that want to come into your life when God is getting ready to raise you up. Now, don't be fanatical about it, because when God gets ready to move and raise you up, there are some people you don't even know, new people that God will send into your life, and you cannot miss them. But there are some people that have been walking with you for a season and they know, but I will tell you this. They know, and then they want to do something to help you. But if they could have, they would have. That's my favorite season. My favorite saying during this season. If they could have, they would have helped you. But now that they see movement, now that they see God raising you up, now they got ideas. Now they want to share something with you. Now they want to connect you with someone. Why? So you can be beholden to them, so that they can get a piece of the action, so they can go up with you and they can say, listen, this is what I did for you. But those are the people you need to watch out for. Because when God gets ready to bless you, he sends people that their heart is in the mission. They're going to do what it takes to get you to that next step. They're not there to take from you. And when people have needs, they're there to take, not to give. So you have to pay attention and know the difference. And so when they see movement, people are going to want to go. The same thing, when some people see movement, they're going to try to talk you out of it. Why are you doing that? It doesn't take all of that. Well, why you got to go there? Why do you have to listen to this group? Why do you have to do it that way? Well, if their way worked, again, it would have already worked. Because the tree is known by its fruit. And success leaves clues. Success leaves clues. There's nobody that's going to take you anywhere that they have not been. How can I show you how to get somewhere that I have never been myself? I can't. That's fake. That's phony. That's deception. That's a lie. I'm not going to take you anywhere I have not been. So success leaves clues. So here we have, which I love and I preached about on Sunday, the book of Judges, chapter 7. And we are looking at the story, if I'm not mistaken, of Gideon. Gideon. Now, I did go back and read a little bit because some people don't know who they are and they always think it's somebody else. And as you know, everything that they produced in that season, the Midianites came and destroyed it, even the cattle, even the ox. And so Gideon was somewhere hiding when God found him. When it was his turn, he was hiding with the stuff. He was hiding with the wheat because they kept taking the wheat. Every time it was harvest time, they would let them plant, but they wouldn't let them reap. And to me, that is a great example of how sin in the camp, if you are losing stuff, if stuff is being taken, it's not because God doesn't love you. It's because God is showing you something is not lining up, something is not right, and you have got to figure out what it is. In this situation, Israel had sinned, and because Israel had sinned, God had raised up another adversary, which was the Midianites. And everything they planted, the folks took it. So when you're suffering loss, you got to ask yourself, why am I suffering loss? I'm a child of God. And there's, wrong teaching out there that talk about God stripping you. I've never seen anybody strip anybody in the Bible. Please show it to me. Unless it was the enemy. They stripped Jesus' clothes off of him. They took his coat. Joseph's brothers stripped him down and took his cloak of many colors. I see the enemy stripping. I don't see God stripping. Now, God will process you and God will allow some things and step back when you're in sin, but truly God himself is not stripping you. And the stripping is not bad. It's just a wake-up call. Why is this happening? So when God shows up to Gideon, again, he tells him who he is because he doesn't know who he is. He's fearful. He's afraid. This is somebody that doesn't even know he's called. And God shows up to him and says to Gideon, you mighty man of valor. He calls him what he is. And some of us have false identity and identity problems because nobody has told you who you are. Nobody has spoken into you and told you exactly who you are and how important you are to the vision and the mission that God has called you to. So when he shows up to Gideon, he shows up to somebody that does not even know that he has a call on his life. Gideon has no clue. He's somewhere hiding from the enemy. He has no idea the boldness and the call on his life. And yet, even in his weakness, God chooses him. I love that because we are made strong when we are weak. That's a biblical principle. God is always looking for somebody to show himself strong in. Anybody looking at you will know there's no way you made it. There's no way you did it without the Lord on your side. There's no way that they could have survived what you went through. It was the Lord. Anybody else probably would have died, but you're still here. and you're still here glorifying God. And so with Gideon, here we see somebody who doesn't even know, didn't have time to say that on Sunday, but he didn't even know that he had a call on his life. And he was waiting on somebody else to do it. He was waiting on somebody to come and save them. And I'm sure he was probably a little mad at God. And so God chooses Gideon, and we see a process that he has to go through because he has no faith. And when you first get called, a lot of times you can't believe that it's you. You can't believe that God has a call or anything for you to do. It's almost hilarious sometimes. You want me to do what? You want me to teach? You want me to preach? You want me to say something to your people? But that's what God does. He takes the foolishness of the world. And so what happened with Gideon was that God finally got him out of fear into some faith. How did he do it? He put out a fleece that still wasn't good enough. God said, if you're still fearful, I'm going to tell you to go down to the enemy's camp. So he did something he never would have done. And some of us are going to have to do something we've never done before to shake ourselves out of that faith. Well, it looks crazy to everybody else that you would go in the enemy's camp. And when they got there, the enemy was telling a dream. One of them was saying to the other one, the dream, and then the interpretation was that it was going to be Gideon leading his people to battle. And so in Judges chapter 7, where I preached from on Sunday, it says, then Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all the people who were with him rose early and encamped beside the well of Harod, so that the camp of the Midianites was on the north side of them by the hill of Moreh in the valley. So now God has taken a farmer, y'all, and turned him into a warrior. He has turned a farmer into a soldier. Only God can do that. A farmer has now transitioned into a warrior. And he has an army with him. And he has a large army. But when God looks at him, the Lord said to Gideon in verse 7:2, the people who are with you are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hands, lest Israel claim glory for itself against me, saying, my own hand has saved me. Now listen, even with all the people that they had, they didn't have as many as the Midianites had. No, they didn't. They did not. In fact, they didn't have half as many as they needed to take out the Midianites. And so what happened was, even with them still not having enough to take out the Midianites, God said, you still got too many. You still got too many, because what you have is you have something that you can rely on and say, we did it because of the numbers. And a lot of times God is like, you don't need all of that, because I don't want anybody taking my glory. I make it plain to you because sometimes you have too much stuff. You have too many people speaking into your life. You have too many people that have an opinion and are telling you what to do. And God is like, no, you have too many. So the first separation, he says to him, I want you to get everybody that is fearful or afraid. I need you to tell them that they can leave. And that's what they did. This is not the first time this happens in the Bible, that you will see that they will say anybody trembling or afraid, they don't even take them to battle with them. Wonderful. And neither can you and I. If anybody is fearful or afraid, let me read it so I can let y'all have it, because if you want to read it at home, then you'll have it. In Judges chapter 7, verse 3, He says, now therefore proclaim in the hearing of the people, saying, whoever is fearful and afraid, let him turn and depart at once from Mount Gilead. And 22,000 of the people returned, and 10,000 remained. Now, let me share you with something that I meditated on this after the sermon. 22,000 decided that they were fearful and afraid. This is what that looks like. You're getting ready to do something for God. You're on a mission God has called you to, and now you have people with you. They're watching, and they may even be with you, but they have no faith. Because you cannot have fear and faith, baby. You got to have one or the other. Either you're serving God and you're believing God and your faith is in God and you know that God can do it, or you got people who are with you, but they have no faith, which means they're not going to be any good to you. They're going to be dead weight. They're going to be speaking the wrong thing, because faith has a sound. And they're going to be speaking things that do not line up with what God is saying to you. So anybody, that first separation, you have to separate those who don't want to fight, who have no faith in you or your God. And even if they have faith in God, they don't have faith in you. They're fearful and afraid. And if they're fearful, that means they have no faith. If they're fearful, that means they cannot help you. And sometimes we mess up because we have too many people with us that are afraid. I don't care. They may be afraid of success. They may be afraid that you're going to fail. It doesn't matter. They're still afraid. And what's going to happen is that fear is going to stop them from moving. That fear is going to stop them from winning. So they have to choose whether they're going to be in fear or they're going to be in faith. So he says that first group, you need to let them know, proclaim it. If you're fearful and you're afraid, you need to leave. You can leave now. And they did leave. And you got to be honest with people who are walking with you, because where you're going, you cannot have faithless people with you. You need people that have faith in not just you, but faith in God. Some people have faith in you, but they have no faith in God. That's not going to help you either. It needs to be both. It needs to be faith in God, and it needs to be faith in you, that God is using you, that you're the one that's anointed and appointed for this hour, and God is going to use you. Yes, you can do it, they're going to say. I got your back. I got you. That's what faith sounds like. Do what's in your heart. God got you. You see, I'm praying for you. Now, you got some that say they praying for you, but they really not. And if they're not praying from a stance of faith, it's still not going to work. There's no fear-filled prayer that's going to get to God. That prayer needs to be on the wings of faith. And so the first group, they're separated because they have no faith. They either don't have the faith in Gideon that he can do it, that he's a good leader, or maybe they don't have a faith, enough faith in God, that God will deliver them, because the enemy was massive. The enemy was like grasshoppers. I mean, they were like a whole bunch of locusts coming. They were well outnumbered. And so the first group left. But then he had 10,000. So in the word it says, but the Lord said to him, the people are still too many. Verse 4, Judges 7:4. The people are still too many. Bring them down to the water and I will test them for you. Yes. Now this second leg, you cannot see what's going on with them clearly, because they look okay. And they may sound like they got faith, but God knows the heart. See, we look on the outside of a man, or woman, but God looks at the heart. God knows that they're really with you, or if they're just hanging on to elevate with you. Do they really have a heart for the mission, or are they just trying to use you to get ahead? But God knows that heart. He knows if they're going to stay and if you're going to go so far and they're going to get comfortable. No, they can't go either. So he says, this is what I'm going to do. Those that put their hands to the cup of water and they do it, those are the ones that you're going to use. And those that kneel down and they get on their knees and drink water that way, those are the ones that can lead. I'm going to tell you which ones he tells you. God is going to tell you. I love this. He says to them, I will test them for you. You have got to allow God the time to test and vet people for you, because he alone knows the heart. What I love about it is you can put the word on them in prayer, because the word of the Lord is like a two-edged sword, dividing between soul and spirit, bone and marrow. It's the only thing that can separate, so you can really see what you're dealing with. He says, and I will tell you once I vet them, it will be that if whom I say to you, this one shall go with you, the same shall go with you. And of whomever I tell you, this one shall not go with you, the same shall not go. Now, I love this, and I wanted to talk about this tonight, because sometimes your little heart gets in it. I understand, mine too. And God is saying no to that person. And you like, Lord, I don't understand. I mean, they look okay. They look like they have my back. They're saying the right things, and God is saying no. Whoever I say no to, you got to trust me. It's no. And whoever I tell you to take with you, it's a yes. You got to allow that second group, because you cannot handle it. If you could, you would do the separating, but you can't, because you can't see. Your emotions may be in it. You know, you may even love that person. And so you're blinded because you cannot see that they're helping, but they're hurting at the same time. Because you can't get ahead, because now I got to worry about you, their weight. There's somebody that will slow you down. So that second group, they got to take off their weapons. Listen, anybody that has to kneel down with a full suit of armor on, anybody been in the war or been in the military, that person is wasting time. They will slow you up. They will slow you down. Yeah. And you cannot have people that slow you down. But see, what the problem is, we don't like loss. We don't like losing people. We like to hold on to everybody because we don't handle loss well. We can't handle it when people leave. That's why God has to do it. And when he does it, it will be smooth. Yes, it will. When you get down on your knees, you have to lay down some of your weapons. I can't fight with somebody that's going to lay down that weapon. I need you to be on guard 24/7, or whatever your shift is, whatever your watch is. I need you to have my back. Now, if you notice, a lot of them, a lot of that 10,000, only 300 didn't do it like that. Because some people, I'm sure they saw other people taking their weapons off and getting down on their knees, and they followed suit. So you can't be with people that's got to follow the crowd and do what everybody else do. And maybe they're very traditional. That's not the group that you need with you. You need people who are going to not weigh you down, not slow you down, and they're going to be about the mission. They're going to be on guard. They're going to watch your back. I don't have time for you to get and put your weapons back on. We're gone already. We can get hurt like that. But we don't need everybody. That's the good news when we go up. God already has handpicked the ones that are going to go up with you. We don't need everybody. We just need the ones that God has chosen for the mission, for the vision. Those are the ones we need. And so when they got finished, only 300 were left that actually stooped, cupped their hand, drank, and got up. Yeah. The first group, cowards, no faith, walking in fear. The second group, careless. How many of us got careless folks? I know I can raise my hand. You got people who they may love you, but they're careless. And you know you're careless when you're going to lay down those weapons. Come on now. Yeah. You can't lay no weapons down. And so the first group, the cowards, they got to go. They cannot go up with you. The second group that are careless, they cannot go up with you. Cowards and careless people cannot help you as God advances you. You need people with you that are going to stay the course. They're going to do what you tell them to do, and they're going to recognize who you are and that God has chosen you to do the work, that God has chosen you to be the leader, that God has chosen you to go and advance in this season. Those are the type of people that you need with you. Those are the people. So when you get to the war, when you get over to Judges chapter 7, verse 19, when they're getting ready to fight. Judges 7:19. So Gideon and the 100 men who were with him, because he divided them into 300. Let me back up. He divides the 300 men into 3 companies in Judges chapter 7:16. And he put a trumpet into every man's hand, a trumpet, with empty pitchers and torches inside the pitchers. So you got a pitcher that's empty, and then you got a torch inside the pitcher. And he said to them, look at me and do likewise. Look at me and do what I do. Look at me and model my behavior. Look at me. See, when those people are afraid or cowards, when people that are careless and they're not going to listen to you and they're not going to do what you're telling them to do, and they're not going to believe what God is telling you to do, you can't have those people with you. Now, by the time they get to the actual war and it's time to fight, we ain't got nobody piping up saying, well, wait a minute. Well, what about this? Well, what if we get hurt? Well, where's the weapons? Well, where's the this? Why can't, what do you mean? Why are you putting trumpets in our hand? Because God was going to fight the battle for them. But God had given them strategy because the enemy outnumbered them. But with those trumpets, when they blew them, it confused the enemy when you got 300 trumpets blowing at the same time. But listen, if you have people that don't believe in the work and don't believe in what God called you to do, when you give them weird instructions, they're going to question your sanity. They're going to question, have you heard from God? And you going to question, have you heard from God? You don't have time for that. You need people who are going to trust what you're telling them, that you have heard from your God. So he puts trumpets in their hands. He separates them in groups of 100. So you got a company of 1, company 2, and company 3. And he tells them, I need you to do what you see me do. Lord, if I could teach this thing. So he hands them the empty pitchers with the torches, and he says, look at me and do what I do. Watch, and when I come to the edge of the camp, you shall do as I do. This is what God is trying to show you from this passage. You have to have people that are going to follow you and have your heart. I'm not saying that people cannot question you, but at that point, when we're fighting, baby, I ain't got time for your questions. It's time to fight. We're in the middle of a battle, a very serious battle. And somebody gonna get hurt. So he says in verse 18, when I blow the trumpet, I and all who are with me, then you also blow the trumpets on every side of the whole camp and say, the sword of the Lord and of Gideon. All of those people, it's not about you, it's about God. It's all about God. No, it's about you and God working. God wants to use you. He wants to work with you to get it done. So Gideon and the 100 men who were with him came to the outposts of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch. They had different watches, those are times. And just as they had posted the watch, and they blew the trumpets and broke the pitchers. Now listen, can you imagine they got pitchers and now they're breaking the pitchers and that sound hitting. And I'm sure God magnified that sound that were in their hands. Then the three companies blew the trumpets and broke the pitchers. They held the torches in their left hands. Look how that is a very specific instruction. They blew the trumpets, they broke the pitchers, and they held the torches in their left hand and the trumpets in their right hand for blowing. And they cried, the sword of the Lord and of Gideon. Because you got to say something. And you got to say the same thing. This is what the unity of the brethren looks like. This is how you win every battle that you need in your church, in your house, your family. You got to be on one accord, saying the same thing. You raising children, say the same thing. You got a business partner, when they come to you, they shouldn't hear anything different than what they heard from me. And every man stood in his place all around the camp, and the whole army ran and cried out and fled. They didn't know what hit them. Had no idea. Who could give you a strategy like that but God? Who would even think to do that? God. And when the 300 blew the trumpets, the Lord set every man's sword against his companion throughout the whole camp. And the army fled to Beth Acacia toward Zerah as far as the border of Abel. And the men of Israel gathered together from Naphtali, Asher, and all Manasseh and pursued the Midianites. So now the Midianites, the enemy, is running. Why? Because they are on one accord. They're running because the enemy is running because they're confused. How can they be that loud? I can't imagine what the breaking glass sounded like to them. And then the shouting. Then Gideon sent messengers throughout all the mountains of Ephraim, saying, come down against the Midianites and seize from them the watering places as far as Beth Barah and the Jordan. Then all the men of Ephraim gathered together and seized the watering places as far as Beth Barah. Now listen, so this is another people that were not with him, but now they can come down and help. So there's going to be times where the others who didn't come with you, that they can help. But you have to know what season that is and when in the battle that you need these folks to come. Who am I talking to? Does any of this make sense to y'all tonight? Because I need you to have time to ask questions. I'm leaving about 10 minutes for you. That when you get ready for God to raise you up for such a time as this, that you have to vet the people that are in your life. That everybody with you cannot go. They will not go. They will not have the faith to go, or either they're too careless to go. they will get you killed. Fighting with somebody that is afraid, or fighting with somebody that is careless, or don't know how to use their weapons, or don't know when to lay them down and pick them up. Who am I talking to?